Hello, I am back for another session of Listen with Rachel, and I'm reading from my book, Magnificent Midlife, Transform Your Middle Years, Menopause and Beyond. And I decided that the best way to introduce my book to people was to read little bits of it. So that's what I've been doing over the last week or so, and it's quite a lot of fun. And people seem to like it, so I'm carrying on with it. And you can get my book by going to magnificentmidlife.com/book, and you can buy the ebook or the audiobook narrated by me in a proper studio, so not quite so relaxed as I am here on my sofa, a little bit more professional. So you can get that at magnificentmidlife.com/book. If you want a paperback, I'm afraid you've got to go to Amazon or another online bookstore to get that. The quickest way is to get it from Amazon, and it does look rather nice, don't you think? It looks rather nice if you want to get the paperback, but otherwise you can get the ebook or the audiobook from me. So anyway, without further ado, dear me, I'm going to put my specs on so I can see what I'm reading. It always helps. Right, now, if you followed me for any time at all, you will know that I am utterly passionate about rebranding menopause. And if you look on my grid, my Instagram grid, you will see that I just got a new review, and it was somebody saying, such a joy to find a book that, you know, is not all doom and gloom about menopause and midlife and women aging. And that is exactly what I'm trying to do. So I'm very happy to have got that review, okay? So this is from the section in part 1, Crisis What Crisis, Unpicking Old Narratives, and it's about rebranding menopause. So here we go. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I will begin. I started this book telling you about my fear of being a dried up old prune at 41. What little I knew about menopause was overwhelmingly negative, and I bought into the narrative that menopause was the end of meaningful life. I didn't do that for very long, thank goodness, but it was the first unpleasant thought to hit me as I left the doctor's office when I just had the diagnosis of early menopause. You have to go back to understand that bit. As with aging in general, culture matters massively when it comes to how we understand, approach, and experience menopause. It's not just a physical experience, as we'll explore later. And how we each experience menopause is unique, dependent on many factors, including geography. I find it fascinating that women in Western English-speaking cultures, where I've noticed the most ageism, appear to report the most angst about menopause and the worst menopause-related issues. One study found that British women reported the very worst symptoms. It may be that symptoms experienced during the menopausal transition arise through a complexity of factors and not simply declining levels of estrogen. Ethnicity, geographic location, stress, local culture, and age are factors that also need to be taken into account. If we take a quick gander through the experience of other cultures, we see how there is often a correlation between how aging in general is perceived and women's experience of menopause. In China, menopause is called a woman's second spring, and anecdotal evidence, by that I mean my experience, okay, I'm just letting you know that. That's not in the book, but I'm just letting you know that. Anecdotal evidence suggests menopause is less of an issue for women in China. Obviously, there are lots of aspects to consider, such as how taboo the subject is, diet, body weight, environment, levels of exercise, and so on, which we'll discuss later. But I fundamentally believe that if we don't fear getting older so much, we also won't feel fear around menopause, or we'll feel less fear around menopause. And if we don't fear menopause, our experience of it can often be easier. We may even look forward to the time when we're no longer a slave to estrogen, which has made us want to nurture everyone except ourselves, as we wave a fond goodbye to the emotional roller coaster of our menstrual cycle. This is my hope for women. If I were a Native American, I'd have likely viewed the menopausal transition as a neutral or positive experience as I moved to becoming a woman of wisdom in my community. Many women in cultures where ageing is viewed more positively, or where lack of fertility can be viewed in terms of greater freedom, report few menopausal issues, simply a cessation of periods. Our personal attitude towards menopause has a significant role in our overall experience of it. Seriously, that's what I've discovered. We'll look elsewhere at the power of the mind, but starting with the very transition of menopause, what we believe will be, often will be. Our expectations can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Women who have negative attitudes towards menopause and or ageing are more likely to report a greater number and frequency of menopausal symptoms. Western societies, which do not necessarily prioritise procreation, still often place a high value on youthfulness. In these societies, menopause signals loss of youth combined with a perceived loss of sexual attractiveness, and this perception can lead to negative attitudes towards the transition. So there you go, that's just a little snippet from my section on rebranding menopause, because sometimes I feel like the great menopause defender, because it's just not her fault. You know, she gets blamed for so much, but it's often sexism, ageism, the way we've looked after ourselves. If we're drinking too much coffee and tea and caffeine, maybe we like too much booze, maybe we are addicted to sugar, maybe we're just coping with so much stress. And one of the things I talk about in here is how I really fundamentally believe that the issues that women encounter around menopause are the body's early warning system telling us that everything's not right. And if we mask those symptoms, if we take the panacea of HRT, which can be very, very helpful for many women, and I took it myself for several years until I reached so-called normal menopause age, because I went through the early menopause, and it was to replace the years that I had lost, you know, the 10 years that I didn't have between my diagnosis of early menopause and the actual menopause age. So HRT can be very, very helpful, but there are several things to remember. First is it's only going to deal with the sex hormones, and we have over 100 hormones, and you know, we need to think about all the other hormones as well. And also that just had a message come up on the screen then. I've lost my train of thought. I'm going to say it's menopause or brain fog. What was the other thing? Oh yes, so if we mask the symptoms, go away, Hazel. Oh, you keep coming up on my screen, Hazel, stop messaging me. So then, completely lost my train of thought. If we mask those symptoms, we don't have the opportunity to fix the underlying issues. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have to think about, you know, if our body is aching, why? I believe if the body aches, the body is trying to talk to us and tell us that something's going on, right? So it pays to listen. It pays to stay curious. Hazel, I'm blaming you. You've just completely, I've thrown off my game because I'm getting, Hazel's my assistant. She's absolutely wonderful, I have to say. But yes, she's been messaging me because she's very, very efficient. It comes up on my phone. I should turn notifications off when I'm doing this, shouldn't I? Anyway, told you far too much. I like to share. This is all about me sharing. So go get the book, magnificentmidlife.com/book. There is an ebook, there is an audiobook narrated by yours truly, and if you want the paperback you can get that from Amazon. So thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me rabbit on about menopause. So there you go. Bye for now.